Good morning and welcome to day 12. Swiftly approaching 2 weeks here. 12 episodes on the channel now. Not, I shouldn't call them episodes, they're just vlogs. So to quickly cover the physicality stuff, definitely still sweating. Sweated a lot last night, but sleep still seems to come fast, and despite the fact that I'm waking up a few times in the night with some vivid dreams, I've been getting pretty good sleep, I think, most of the time. We watched Schindler's List last night, and after watching all those people smoke cigarettes and drink alcohol, I was like, I'm having a drink. So I had a couple of glasses of whiskey, not enough to get shit faced or anything, but it was nice to have something else going on in the brain for a little bit. Nice to kind of unwind and I mean, you're not really unwinding when you watch Schindler's List, but but it was nice to have a drink, and it was the first drink I've had since maybe September of last year, maybe before then, and it'll probably be the last drink I'll have for a while too. I don't tend to drink a lot of alcohol. I'm not even really a monthly drinker. So anyway, don't really have all that much to talk about as far as quitting the drugs and quitting video games are concerned. Like I said the other day, I find myself looking for compromises when it comes to video games, trying to think of ways that I can, excuse one in, and I think that's sort of I guess that's the norm, is where you start to do those types of things. So we spent the day out and went out looking at a house, which we ended up putting an offer in on, which was pretty good. And yeah, I just feel like it's going to be kind of open slog time. So I figure I'll take 5 seconds to talk about Schindler's List, and something that I came across I guess it's a little bit political, but I wanted to put these thoughts out there verbally so that maybe I can think about them a little bit while I'm talking about them, and that they're recorded for posterity. The last 2 or 3 years of Trump's presidency, in particular for people on the right, has been a year where we've been called Nazis. People on the right were called Nazis, and anyone who disagreed with the left's ideas, like, for example, people who said all lives matter, for example, or people who were against giving children, puberty blockers and mutilating their genitals in the name of free expression of what these children think their gender are. All these types of people, these people on, I hate to say it, but the political left, were calling people who disagreed with them Nazis. And you saw it in particular with the Black Lives Matter protests. There were signs and lots of white people walking around, lots of privileged white people walking around with signs that said Nazi on them. But anyone who's actually done the history, who's studied the history, who's watched the documentaries and read the accounts and read the books and understands the scope of evil that existed in Germany at the time, and in Japan too. And in Russia, but we're talking about Nazis specifically, would never throw that word around so lightly. And I think the left's speed to embrace that word, to use as a label, shows how desperate they were to try to find the very worst words they could use to describe conservatives. Now, I'm not saying that conservatives are not guilty of something similar, but usually what you see in conservative circles is words like libtard, or demacunt, or any of these other sort of awful descriptions for people who are essentially our brothers and sisters, whether we like their politics or not. But I think there should be particular offence taken at the use of the word Nazi. If someone is calling you a Nazi and they are comparing you to the level and the scope of evil that occurred in Germany during that period of time, I think it's incumbent on the person who's being called a Nazi to call that person out and to stand up for themselves and get angry. Respond. Make there be a consequence for people using that word, because when you compare even what Donald Trump did in the worst, very worst optic that ever came out for him, which was the kids in the cages at the border, and all of the media complete meltdown about that. Let's not get into the fact that Biden ended up doing exactly the same thing after he got president, less than a month, and he was doing the same thing. But using that incident as a way to say, well, oh, you must be a Nazi, that really does prove how desperate the left is to try to find the worst words to label conservatives, and how they know that those words are not just offensive, but they incite violent, or not violent, but they incite heated rhetoric around it. Like if someone calls you a Nazi, there's a lot of reasons why you should get mad about that, and I think it's justifiable to get mad and to respond in accordance. So I think one of the resolutions that I made after thinking about that for a while last night was that when I hear people start to use that term Nazi, if I ever hear it within my group of friends or within the people that I associate with or out in public, that I will call people out regardless of who they are about that, we're using that word, because we need to be more careful about how we label our people. If you label someone a Nazi, it's very easy for you to just dehumanize them from there. And as I've said before, the way that we speak is how we shape our reality. And for the people out there who use the word Nazi to label people, they are shaping their reality for there to be Nazis in it, despite the fact that National Socialism died at the end of World War II. And the country of origin, Germany, was so culturally and historically scarred by what had happened in Germany that they're still essentially a cuck nation. They are essentially still repaying in virtue what they can for what happened. I don't think we need to drag it on anymore, and I certainly don't think we need to reinvent the term to describe people who supported Donald Trump. So yeah, anyway, that's the point that I wanted to make. As far as quitting video games and drugs goes, it's still just in a grind. But I'm happy that it's a grind. I'm happy that it's a struggle, because the more of a struggle it is, the more I'm going to learn from it, and the better I'll be at the end of it. So I am prepared to suffer. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Ka kite.